Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me is Sudeepto Mukherjee, Head of Financial Services at Publicis Sapient, to discuss the company's global banking benchmark study, which helps banks understand how to digitally transform. Sudeepto, it's great to meet with you. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Thanks for having me, Jill.
The survey assesses financial services providers' ability to deliver customer experience and operational transformation to critical digital innovation areas. Did the pandemic highlight weaknesses in customer experience?
So that's a great question. I think the pandemic highlighted two things that came across in the study. Firstly, it drove a sense of urgency for banks to move to a digital-first model. And what we saw was most banks were very complimentary and very proud of their ability to move their model and serve their customers from the confines of their home. But the other issue that you allude to is 70% also felt that it exposed some weaknesses in the way they service customers in this digital-centric way. And I think a big priority for banks right now is to maybe continue with that same momentum that they saw during the pandemic to fix some of these bugs as the world recovers from the pandemic.
Are banks executing on digital transformation strategies?
That's a great question. I think there's mixed reviews on that. The good news is 80% of the respondents we interviewed felt they had a very strong and robust digital strategy. The vision for digital enablement was very strong. However, less than 20% felt they were meeting their goals towards that strategy, towards that vision that set out. They talked about things like investing in new technology, investing in people, investing in collaboration and relationships. But at the same time, I think some of the institutional inertia is making it harder for banks to execute. How do you direct scarce capital towards modernization while still keeping your lights on your legacy platform? How do you balance the need for having deep controls but still executing at pace? And I think the leaders in this survey are the ones that are able to navigate this complexity very effectively.
And we know that banks value customer experience. How are they managing data around that?
I think the first priority for banks is to keep their data secure and safe. I had a client tell me that 200 years ago, they were differentiated on the thickness of their vaults. Today, it's around the cyber security of how they secure customer data. And I think they're doing very well in that regard. And there's a lot of funding on that. I think the next stage is, can you use that data to drive personalized experiences? Can you get an investment advice that's uniquely suited to your cash flow and your goals and liabilities? Can you get a loan when you need it, not 3 months after you apply for it? And that's where only 30% were focused on using data to drive that customer insight, to drive those value conversations. But I think that will change, as cloud technologies and other modern ways make it easier for banks to manage and govern data. You'll start seeing that percentage go up towards more value-driven services using data in a safe and secure way with consent.
So it sounds like they're investing more in digital innovation.
Absolutely, absolutely. Across the board, I think we saw innovation in products and services as being a key criteria for our clients, of the top executives in these banks. And you see pockets of that, right? You see Goldman taking their treasury knowledge and creating a transaction banking offering for their customers. You see the global banks like Citibank and HSBC using their global liquidity pools to create multi-currency wallets at very competitive prices. So you're seeing this in pockets. I think what we're waiting to see is this happen at scale in a meaningful way that changes the balance sheet of a company, much like Amazon did with AWS. And I'm hopeful that as banks lean more into innovation, you'll see these bigger changes happen that'll drive more value for consumers.
So at the end of the day, are banks aware that digital capabilities are mission critical? Do you think their strategies are going to reflect that?
There's no question in my mind that banks see digitization as an existential need. They talk about the very key ingredients in their strategies, the need to invest in their people, the need to modernize, the need to build effective partnerships. I also think the leaders see this as an opportunity to fundamentally reimagine the value equation, move away from just providing mortgages to helping customers buy homes, move away from just providing trade finance into managing working capital to create profitable businesses. And I think that's the opportunity in front of banks. And the leaders are the ones that can kind of overcome these barriers and get to the other side. And that's why I think the study shed some very interesting light on how they can clear the path and create a very exciting future for both the industry, but more importantly for consumers.
All right, Sudeepto, appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks, and thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
Thanks, Jill. Appreciate it.